Welcome to Book Talk with Kara, and today I'm so excited, Joel. We're going to talk about with each tomorrow, but that's kind of here or there. What we're really here to do is talk about one of my writing heroes, Tracie Peterson, and Kimberley Woodhouse, who I've had the fun of talking with before. But here's why Tracie is one of my writing heroes. Back in the day when Kara was a writing baby and showed up at her very first ACFW conference in 2005. See, I'm so like in awe, I can't even talk. I showed up at ACFW, and there was one thing I knew. I was never going to write for this one publisher called Heartsong Presents because I just didn't write books like that. And at the time, Tracie doesn't even know this. Tracie was the head editor for that line, but I, being the person I am, was like, I didn't know anybody. I knew nobody other than Colleen Coble. And she told me to come to this conference. So I came and I was like, oh, they need volunteers. Okay, I'll volunteer because I'm a little extrovert, which is not normal among writers. And so I was like, I need to meet people. I'll volunteer. Give me a job. I'm always looking for a job. And I laughed when I saw the workshop I was paired with, because it was Tracie and her husband, Jim, which is so fun because they are just the most amazing people. But Jim got there and I was there early, all ready to help with whatever. And he and I started talking. And we were both history people. So he had majored in history. I minored in history. I'm from Nebraska. He was from Kansas. Our favorite time periods were World War II. And so I was like, so have you ever heard of this little thing that my hometown in Nebraska did during World War II? And he said, no. The next day I got a book idea. And a year later, Tracie had pulled it out of a slush pile because I sent it in as an idea for a proposal to Heartsong Presents, and that became my first book. So Tracie, thank you again for helping me become a published
You're
author.
welcome. Oh, I think you do an amazing job. So I'm so excited that we got to start you off.
Yeah, so I still don't know what you saw in that because I did everything backwards. I don't know if Jim told you that I didn't write the full manuscript. I sent in the proposal because I was so sure it wasn't ever going to get picked up. And then he emailed me and said, we have a hole. Where's the book? And I was like, gulp. So I wrote it in 2 weeks.
Awesome. I love hearing stories like that. I do.
So everybody don't do what I did. That's not the right way to
No.
do it, but they still bought it. So that's good. But we're here to talk about you guys, this next book. Now, when you first went on tour, because you've written 12 books now together, which I want to hear all of that story about how you started writing together. But when you went on your first tour, Tracie, it was your 99th book, and Kim, it was your 9th book. What was that like, Kim, to be paired with Tracie Peterson? I mean, this is Tracie.
Well, I have to tell you that because Tracie and I have been really good friends for a long time, and we were prayer partners and Bible study buddies, before this point. She
Right.
was my biggest cheerleader. And so I had, several books published, and she was calling me to check up because we had been praying about a pub board meeting that was about a new proposal. And we were just chatting, and she goes, you know what? We're going to write together. And at that point, I literally just about fell off my chair. I was sitting on one of the bar stools in the kitchen because we're so close. And I always tell people, it's like, I would have never asked that of her. There's probably lots of other people I might have, been bold enough to ask that of, but I would never have asked that of her. And it just, was not something that I would have ever done. And I couldn't believe she said that. And so the fact that we were writing together was fun, but it made me laugh even more when we were on that first book tour together. And it was my 9th book because everybody was asking, how many books have you written? So it was 9. And then for Tracie, it was 99. So my goal is to catch up with her. I don't think that's ever going to happen, but that's my goal.
Yeah, because now
she totally will catch up. I know Kim. She will.
Yeah, because now you're at over 140 and Kim's at over 40, and you're both just incredible authors. But Tracie, how do you keep coming up with ideas? Because that's something, I mean, I'm writing book 43, getting ready to come with the next proposal idea. And there hits a point where I'm like, I don't even know how people keep coming up with ideas, but you get to like 140 some, and I'm in awe. How do you keep coming up with incredible ideas that leave readers clamoring for more. I mean, the well is just so deep with you. Where does the next idea
Well,
come from?
at the very base, I believe the writing is a ministry and it's a gift from the Lord. And so I have counted on him as my agent and my idea giver and all of those things. But, I think tied to that then is my passion for reading. And I love to watch documentaries and things like that. And I'm always just finding little tidbits. I love to read nonfiction and history in particular.
Yeah.
And then I love to, like I said, watch documentaries and various things like that. And I'll hear some just little tiny tidbit. Like I just, last year, the Pictures of the Heart series was out, and it dealt with the Seattle kind of a World's Fair thing that they had in 1904 or 1907. I can't remember now. It's been a bunch of books ago.
Yeah.
But they had this World's Fair type thing. And Kodak had just released a Brownie camera that was something affordable for the middle class or whatever. And you have to remember, up until that time, you had to go to a studio to get pictures taken of your family or whatever. And because cameras just weren't readily available, they were very expensive and so forth. Well, now Brownie had this camera out for $10, which, $400 or $500 now, but it was just something that they were advertising at this World's Fair and everything. I just picked that up when I was reading and researching for something else. And I saw that little tidbit and I'm going, oh, wouldn't that be fun to have this World's Fair as a setting and talk about the Brownie camera. So yeah, it's things like that just pop up. And I think they're, just ideas that the Lord lays out there.
I love that. So when you're watching documentaries, do you have a favorite place? Like, are you on PBS? Are you on the History Channel? Or are you just everywhere?
I'm crazy for the Smithsonian Channel.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love that. And it seems like the History Channel has kind of gotten weird and wonky with all sorts of paranormal things and whatnot. But one thing that's kind of cool, even with those kind of shows, is seeing some of these old towns that have, super great histories on other things. But yeah, I love the Smithsonian Channel.
So when you guys are writing, because you're not the only writing pair, but it's not typical for people to kind of write together like that. How do you do it? Do you write different characters? Do you pass the chapters back and forth? What's kind of your writing process?
Well, our process has really come out of what Tracie started with when she started with Judith Pella all those years ago with Bethany House, and she's done it with several people since. But we love to brainstorm. So like when you're talking about ideas, we are never at a loss for ideas. We always have way too many ideas than we can use, and we'll go back and forth. And that's what's great with having a writing partner, because you get to spur off of each other's creativity, which is really brilliant. And sometimes we'll do it in person. Sometimes we do it over the phone. Sometimes we do it over email, and we'll color code stuff. We each take notes. And so then we compile all of that. And it's normally like 40, 50, 60 pages, printed out. And then Tracie, since she is the queen of synopses, at least the last 6 or 7 books, she has been writing the long synopsis, like chapter by chapter.
What a gift.
Like 30, 40 pages. And it's brilliant. So then I take the synopsis and I write the first draft, and I write it short so that there's plenty of room for her to add what I call her brilliance. And so I write the whole first draft, working off of what we have put together. And then she goes through, and so she weaves in her brilliance, throughout the whole first draft. And then she sends it back, and I weave in my wannabe brilliance, after that. And then we turn it into the editor. And so it's just a process going back and forth. And it's funny because people know, fans of both of us get to see the difference in our voices in our books that are on our own. And then when they read them together, they're like, this is great. And I can't tell who wrote what. And there might be entire sections, where she's added stuff or I've added stuff where it's just clearly one of us writing. And yet you can't tell because we seamlessly I think because we love each other so much.
Yeah.
Because we're so close friend wise, it's easy for us to just kind of whoosh, kind of get into that frame of mind of Tracie and Kim,
Well, I
Right.
feel the times that Trisha Goyer and I have written together for Guidepost, it felt that way. Obviously we haven't done it to the level that y'all have, but it really felt like it was that seamless back and forth. And I think having that friendship and that deep level of trust really does make a huge difference. But it's just fun to, and Tracie, anytime you want to write a synopsis for me, you just let me know, because that is my least favorite part. It feels like it's so important, and the writing goes so easy when you have a good synopsis, but it's like pulling teeth. It's just
Well,
painstaking.
and it's so funny. We were just talking about this the other day. You've got the seat of the pants writers who sit down and just write the book. And then you've got the plotters like me who plot it out first and then write the book. But we're doing the same thing. Seat of the pantsers are just writing a fuller version of what I do with the synopsis, because our synopses are usually about 40 pages long and chapter by chapter, and all the details that we want to pack in there. But it's a roadmap, and if we want to take a side journey, we do. And if we want to make a drastic change in the destination, we call the publisher and talk to them about it and then change it usually. But, to me, it's always been the structure that helped me to organize. And we were talking about, I write 4 to 5 books a year usually. And it's because I have these detailed synopses. I don't think, do it otherwise. When I have a 30 chapter synopsis, I know I can knock a first draft out in 30 days because I generally write a chapter a day.
Well, and that's why I could write Canteen Dreams in 2 weeks, because Heartsong required the chapter by chapter, and you're stringing beats at that point because exactly what's happening. And so, but there's a discipline to it. And so, but you're right, you can totally deviate, but you know where you're going.
Exactly.
And okay, these are the characters, these are the main story points. And it's just a question of when you're going to do the work. Are you doing it up front, or are you doing it in the middle? And so I always think it's funny when people are like, no, I couldn't do that. I'm like, you were at the Grand Canyon. You've been in all kinds of different national parks.
Yep.
Did you go, okay, we are going to go around to the different national parks? Is that something you set out to do? Or was there some moment where you're like, aha, this is the hook for this national park?
Well, we were both living in Montana at the time, and it had been our dream. Like for 20 years, she had been asking me to move, where she was. And for 20 years, my kids especially were like, are Aunt Tracie and Uncle Jim going to move near us? We'd been kind of begging each other to get close. And so we actually lived 1.5 miles from each other. I could ride my bike to her house. It was great.
Oh my gosh.
So,
and then you moved again. What's up with that,
did.
Kim?
Grandkids.
Oh yeah, blame it on the grandkids.
I had to go near the grandkid. But we both loved Kalispell, and Kalispell was the place that my husband and I always went when we were just trying to get away for a day or two really quick.
Oh, okay.
It was our favorite place in Montana. So Tracie and I sat down, and we'd actually wanted to do something in the Bitterroot Valley, and it just wasn't working out with what we had planned. And so we thought, well, let's change to Kalispell. And so I just went online and was looking, and I was like, wait, I found this newspaper article about the McIntosh Opera House and how it's still in existence, but it's not used or anything because it's had water damage from a fire damage and all kinds of stuff. But there was just all this cool stuff about this old McIntosh Opera House. So I thought, what if we found, 3 really cool historic buildings, locations? And so every one of our series starts with something different, like Tracie will go, let's do Nome. We did Nome. One book started with the topic of gossip and how it can destroy lives. So it's always different, but this one actually is 3 historical, very cool buildings. So one was the Carnegie Library, which was book 1. Book 2, this book has to do with the Great Northern Depot, the railroad depot, which is still there. And then book 3 is actually going to have the fun McIntosh Opera House in it. So we're actually writing that one right now.
I love that. So Tracie, when she comes to you with this idea, what's your next thought?
I think when she started talking about Kalispell, immediately my mind went to Glacier National Park, which wasn't a park yet. not in our series time period, but people were looking towards that and thinking about that. And of course, the landscape and everything. But then what was kind of funny was at the time we were having all sorts of political campaigning around our area and throughout Montana regarding public lands versus private lands. And so that ownership issue is as old as time and went way back. And so we thought we'll draw that into the story too. And I mean, just different things kept popping up that we could add to it. And, you know, for me, it was great fun. I mean, we were looking for, like she said, something that we could do together that was in the area that, you know, would be just little side trips together or whatever. So we had enormous amounts of fun. I mean, we always do when we write, but now that we're back to writing long distance, you know, it's not quite as much fun.
It is
You just had to break up the band, didn't you, Kim?
God, I know. We finally got together in the same place after all that time. And then it was such a bummer. And, you know, COVID, all of this was happening at the same time. And my daughter found out she was pregnant and she was like, Mom, can you move closer? Because, you know, Kayla has a rare nerve disorder and the doctors had no idea. Nobody with her disorder had been through a pregnancy before. So they had no clue what was going to happen. So they're like, you probably should be a little bit closer to family because they were at West Point and we were in Montana. So it was a really long way away. And, but we love writing together. It's been so much fun working on this series, especially since we both love Montana so much. And we had a fun trip to Kalispell together. And oh my goodness, we had way too much fun while we were up there. Probably scared some of the history people just a little bit with all of our questions, but you know.
Yeah. So what's one of the really interesting details that you learned as you were researching that surprised you and that you couldn't include in the book?
We haven't used it. We've kind of talked about using it in book 3, but I still don't think we're going to use it. But there's underground tunnels in Kalispell that the Chinese population, which was a lot of the servants back during this time period, were forced to use because they couldn't, you know, be among the people, which that really bothered me. So I really wanted to show that. We just haven't found a way to weave that in appropriately where it would, you know, actually come across well, you know, to the reader, but found
got
that
to kill someone and bury the body down there.
There you go.
Kim loves to kill people. Yeah, she is the queen of villains and killing off people. I mean, it's so funny because one of her very first books she did, you know, by herself. I mean, I'm reading this and I'm going, you know, she's describing this villain and he's acting out amongst the peoples. And I'm going, ooh, this guy is just creepy. He's awful. Good job, Kim.
You're like, you're my sweet friend. Where is this coming from?
I know, right? Yeah.
I'm a pastor's kid and a pastor's wife. And so Karen Ball, my editor for all these years, she's brilliant. And she would tell me, she goes, you don't have any edits on your villains. And I'm like, wow, that's great. But what does that say about me? I don't know.
You have tapped into this in nature without living it out.
There you go. There you go.
Oh, so Tracie, I started by talking about how you have launched so many careers and mentored so many writers, but you could very much just be like, I'm focused on me and focused on my career. Why have you made it part of really your practice in writing to launch so many? Because I'm talking Colleen Coble, Denise Hunter, Rachel Houck, Kim, me. I mean, the list could literally go on for forever. Why have you invested in so many of the people that all of us read and love?
I love what I do, and I feel like it's as much a part of the ministry of what I do. When I got started with writing, there were people who were so generous to me. I attended a lot of writer conferences and whatnot. And in fact, that's where I met Judith Pella, was at a writer's conference out in California. And she had just stopped writing with Michael Phillips. And I don't know where I got the boldness, but I went up to her after I heard her speak and asked if she'd ever consider writing with someone again. And she goes, well, I might. What do you have in mind?
I love that.
You know, we got together, but, you know, with Heartsong, I started out as one of their authors, as you mentioned. And then my popularity with that caused them to realize that I had a real feel for what the Heartsong reader was looking for. And so I started doing acquisitions with them just on the side. And pretty soon, before I knew it, they were asking if we would take over the entire line and produce these 4 books a month. And it was an amazing time because it taught me so much about both sides, not just the writer perspective, but the editorial perspective and all the work that goes into the books. And so, you know, it gave me a heart and a passion to see new writers come in and to develop, you know, what they were trying to express and what they wanted to write. And, you know, you get a feel early on for the people who are willing to work at it, willing to make changes, all while keeping their voice and so forth, you know. And then sadly, there's a whole lot of them that are just there looking for the rich and famous contract, which I still haven't gotten.
Yeah.
You know, but you try to explain to them that all the work that goes into this and how no book is ever a single individual project. It's a team effort. And so, you know, you always have such a passion. The new authors have such a passion. As an editor, I had a great passion. I mean, it was just that drive to see people fulfill what I knew was inside them, you know. And so, and I still feel that way. I don't get to do a lot of events these days because of my health, but I do a lot of email with new writers, and people will email me and say, hey, I need some advice, or can you tell me, you know, what organization or this or that would help, and so forth. And, you know, way back when, I helped organize and found ACFW, American Christian Fiction Writers. Only then it was romance writers.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad it changed to fiction because, you know, we needed to include everybody.
Yeah, well, and it's so interesting because you were such an important part of founding that. And then I've been on the board in different capacities since 2008. And Kim, you've been very active at the chapter level and speaking at conference and at different chapters and lots of other events as well. So why do you invest so much of your time in both ACFW through the chapters and national conference, but then also through other organizations as well? Because again, when we're doing that, it's taking away time from writing.
Right. Well, I really look at Christian authors, right, in the Christian community, what we had called the CBA, you know, for so long, as a giant staircase. And I see this giant staircase as never ending to the right and left and never ending up and down. And some of the steps are as tall as a person, right? They're not just regular steps, they're really big steps. And so I look at how many people like Tracie, my biggest mentor, and then Colleen Coble and Danita K. Paul, you know, people who completely poured into me and reached down probably 12, 15 steps, right? You know, and helped me up to the next step. And how many people there have been beside me and behind me, you know, kind of pushing me up by my rear end, you know, to help me make it to the next step. And I think that's the beauty of being in a Christian industry, is how much we love one another. And sometimes we need to remind others. We need to continue to love one another and reach out and help other people. And so, you know, I'm the den mother of a Christian mommy writers group, right? And it's so much fun to pour into them. And I try to schedule several Zoom sessions a month with them and just pray for them and pour into them and ask them where they're at and how can I help? You know, not that I'm an expert on everything, but how can I help? Because I'm on a step that's different than where you're at. And because people have done it for me, I think it's very important to continue that cycle and to pour into people. So when I first started the Colorado Springs chapter of ACFW forever ago, I didn't even have my first contract, right? And this chapter has grown so much. And so when we moved back, I was just excited to get involved. And then I come back and I'm meeting with the lady who is the current president. And she goes, well, I'm moving away.
And you're like, here we go again.
Oh boy. And I just told him, I was like, as long as there's lots of help, because, you know, at the stage I'm at with all of my books, there's not as much time. So I said, as long as there's plenty of help and you guys can deal with my craziness, of course I want to serve. I want to help however I can. And pouring into national ACFW, as well, and doing as much mentorship and teaching and stuff that I can there. I just think it's important for us to continue that, because I also think that we keep learning. And
Exactly.
Danita
Absolutely.
said, I think the best thing, I was at one of my very first conferences. It was, I think, the CCWC conference. And I was in a relatively beginner class. I think Jeff Gerke was teaching it, right? Danita comes in and she sits down beside me, and I knew her really well, but it's like, I think you're in the wrong class. Why are you in here? And she said, the day that I stop learning is the day I should stop writing.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. And I feel the same way. I'm like, when I'm teaching a workshop, Zoom's been great because now I can do it around the country for groups that can never afford to fly me in.
Right.
But when I'm doing it, I'm always learning, and it's a way to give back and say, like you both have said, there have been so many who helped me get to where I am, and I never want to lose that, that gratefulness of saying thank you. And I don't know, sometimes I think my job is to open the door for other people, and so I'm like, okay, I'll just keep opening the door, and I may never hit list, I hit a list one time, and that may be it, and that's okay. Because if I'm here just to keep opening the door for other people and helping make space for them, then it's worth it. So, all right. One more question for you. I have so many questions, and I'm trying to think what's the best one. Okay. Oh, here's a good one. What brings you the most joy as you write? You've both been at it a long time. So Tracie, I'll start with you. What brings you the most joy? Why do you still do it?
Well, from the get-go, I knew this was going to be a ministry. This is my mission field. I don't have to go to Africa, thank the Lord. I get to have my mission field at my desk in my home. And I knew this was going to be a ministry that was going to reach out to other people and touch lives, because, after much prayer and seeking the Lord on it, I came to realize that this was an area that I could share the gospel and biblical application. And so I guess the thing that brings me the most joy is the fan letters that I get, the comments that I get that tell me that the books did change their life or touch their life in a way that brought them closer to God, or whatever. I've had some of the most amazing stories, and my daughter even shared the other day that several months ago she had been blessed by a lady who had heard her story of something that she was in need, and this woman helped her. And my daughter found out that it was because she knew that Julie was my daughter, and she had been helped by my books, and she had been in prison, and the prison ministry had my books, and she had read them and gotten right with God and felt like, she could start anew. And when she got out, she just really focused in on the Lord and felt, that she finally had her life together. And so I see those things, I hear those stories, and I see God at work, and it just thrills me to pieces because I get to do something I love so much and serve him at the same time.
I love that. And Kim, what brings you joy?
Well, it's funny that you asked that question, because my tagline, it's on my logo and everything. It's called The Joy of Story. I love story, but what most people don't know is that joy is all capitalized, because joy stands for Jesus only you. And that helps me to keep my perspective and my focus in the right place, because like Tracie was saying, this is a ministry for me. I know this is a ministry for her, and we're definitely not in it for the money, right? Even though God has provided and blessed in huge ways, through it, but we're definitely not in it for the money. This is a huge ministry, and to touch people's lives. And it's amazing to get reader letters where they have not touched a Bible or been to church or even been around Christians, for years or whatever. And you see how God draws them back in through story. So that's why I have The Joy of Story as my tagline, because I want that to be my focus. And I want that to be what the reader also takes away from it, is Jesus only you. And because he is the joy of story, he's the author of all stories. So that's where I'm at.
I love that. Well, it is a joy and a delight to have both of you here. And with each tomorrow is the new book set in Minnesota.
No,
No, Montana.
Oh,
I keep doing that. So it's set in Montana, near Glacier Park, before Glacier Park is a thing. And it comes out at the end of May, everywhere that books are sold. So wherever you like to get your books, you can get With Each Tomorrow by Tracie Peterson and Kimberley Woodhouse. Now, Tracie, where can people connect with you? Where's your website?
www.traciepeterson.com, and then author Tracie Peterson at Facebook.
And Kimberley, what's the best place to connect with you?
KimberleyWoodhouse.com is my website. Even if you spell my name wrong, you'll still get there because I own all the I own all the domains because my name is spelled differently, Ley. But you can also just put in kimwoodhouse.com and you'll get there as well. And all of my links to social media are there. And I would just love to connect with you.
I love it. And thank you so much for joining me. It was so great to connect with both of you.
Thank you, Kara.
Thanks for having us.